Welcome back to the Boostly podcast. This is the podcast that gives you the tools, the tactics, the training, and most of all, the confidence to go out there and get direct bookings. Today, we do a spotlight series on this podcast where we talk to hosts and services and people that you just need to know about if you're in hospitality. And today, we've got a very special guest. We've got Jenn Boyles. She's a vacation rental pro, a marketer, founder of the Direct Booking Success and Direct Booking Pro. She's on a mission to help hosts ditch the OTAs and build their business on their own terms, which is something that we can completely relate to here at Boostly. So welcome along, Jenn. Thanks for joining us today.
Liam, it's great to be here.
So Jenn, what do you want the listeners to take away from this episode?
That direct bookings aren't just possible, that they're powerful. You know, you don't have to be a tech genius or a marketing wizard to take control of your bookings and take control of your business. You just need the right support, a system that works for you, and the willingness to stop playing Airbnb's game.
And I completely agree with you. And this is why I'm excited to dive in. I mean, you've lived both sides of hospitality, and we were just talking before we hit record about your properties and that side of things. You've done luxury hotels as a kid. What part of that journey has shaped your passion about direct bookings most?
Yeah, I experienced as a kid, my dad was a hotel manager, and I experienced the glamour side of hospitality. You know, I was staying in the same hotel suites that presidents and royalty have stayed in. I even had a friend come once. I was staying downtown Vancouver, and they took pictures of themselves in the bathtub because they knew that Princess Diana had been in that suite. I don't know if she took a bath, but anyways, they got pictures. But I also experienced the other side of dealing with overflowing toilets and demanding guests, you know, as an adult, as a host. Mm-hmm. And my experience on both sides has really taught me that hospitality isn't about the fluff and the fancy stuff. It's about real people. It's a real effort. And it's creating that guest experience from the inside out. You know, living on both ends of that spectrum has given me a real deep respect for this industry. When my first job in hospitality was working with the maids in one of my dad's properties, and I was doing all the mini bars. And sometimes I was in a room before the maids got there. And that actually put me off the industry, quite frankly, because seeing how hard the maids worked and what they went through, and seeing how people left hotel rooms really did put me off. But it took me, when I finally got back into it and I was hosting in my own properties, you know, I realized that it was such a personal experience, being able to host people and being able to be a part of their vacation. And I just absolutely loved it. And it really drove me to work better for the people who were actually doing the work. So supporting the cleaners and supporting maintenance people in that. And I think that it's hard to question to answer, because I think my whole journey so far has really shaped my passion for hospitality.
I mean, it's good because I want the listeners to get an idea of this isn't something that you've just gone, oh, I'll pick that sort of vocations to go and do. This is something that you've lived and breathed and enjoyed and not enjoyed at times. You know, this is what hospitality is. And big shout out to all of the cleaners and the people who are really the backbone of our industry, who actually make it guest ready, make it guest perfect, and help to deliver those 5-star experiences 100%. I was in a property earlier on today, and it was exactly one of those times where it's like, oh my, I can't believe how well, you know, used this property is, basically. And I like it's the cleaner done a fantastic job. But when did the direct bookings kind of light bulb switch on for you, and what changed since that moment?
Well, it was, I'm trying to think of the year. It's a good, it's over 10 years, probably 12, 13 years ago. I was on my third property, and it wasn't getting bookings. And I unfortunately bought in a saturated market. I bought with my heart, not my head. And any investors out there will think, okay, you've done something really wrong. And I did. I loved it. I wanted to own this piece of property and I wanted to bring people into this world. But I was an Airbnb superhost. You know, I had drunk the Kool-Aid. I was all about Airbnb. It had worked so well for the first 2 properties. Mm-hmm. But the third property, I couldn't stand out in the sea of booking options in this area. And I just couldn't see my way out of it until I had somebody contact me directly and asked if they could come and stay and pay outside of Airbnb. And I was, stunned at first, thinking, you can't do this. I see it on all the forums now on Facebook and, people saying you can't do this. And I was like, this is crazy. But I thought to myself, I need the booking. What do I have to lose, really? And I know they had stayed with the previous owner. So I thought this was probably an easy way to start. And I took the booking. And I think that's when sort of the light bulb moment hit, is that I realized that I was looking at my hosting as a hobby and I wanted it to be a business. Now, what industry out there can you think of that has something like an Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com that bring you this business? There really aren't any others. We're in a very strange industry. If you were opening a bakery or a coffee shop or whatever, you would plan it as a business. You would do the marketing. You would look for your own customers, your own clients to come through the door. And that's when the light bulb, it hit me. I realized that's what I was doing wrong, is I was sort of waiting for somebody else to bring me these bookings and, oh, this is so great. This is so easy. But I needed to build my own brand and get my own bookings. And at the time, I didn't know, trying to think of when the whole book direct movement started, but I was not aware of it. I didn't know about it at all. It wasn't until 2020 that I realized there was a whole online group and forums of people and that. And I didn't even know about the book direct movement. I had just knew that I needed to take control and build my own business. And it did change everything for me, because the lessons that I learned in doing this allowed me to launch a new property in a new country with 80% direct bookings.
Nice. And whereabouts was that property?
That was in England. So the property that I had the issues with was in Austria, the Austrian Alps. Think Sound of Music. It was just amazing. But yeah, the new business was in England.
Nice. That's cool. It gives people a real picture of where these properties are, but also just sharing that journey. I'm sure there's so many people who are listening to this who are like, well, they either remember their moment where there was like, this is the first time I'm going to take bookings outside of Airbnb, or they're still in that kind of situation where they're still relying on Airbnb and that they haven't yet opened themselves up to that world of direct bookings, which of course, once you do, you think, how do people operate without direct bookings? That it becomes part and parcel, right, of your business.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it's a mindset, shift. It really is. And I've been on both sides of it. One where like I was worshiping Airbnb, and now I'm on the other side where I'm like, oh, all it does is bring me problems. Yeah. But it is a mindset shift, and depends on your journey. It depends on your business and what you want from it. If you're fine being more of a hobby and just taking the bookings as they come, great. But if you're sitting there going, these bookings, where are they? I need them. I need to pay the mortgage. I need to pay the staff or whatever. I need to put food on the table. Yeah. Then it's time to start looking at it as an actual business and get serious about it and do what any other business in the world would do, which would be get your own bookings.
And this is absolutely true. I mean, ultimately, you have to pull your socks up and get to work to get those customers. There is work involved. It's not like an OTA which brings you the bookings, but ultimately, it's more rewarding and more profitable absolutely, isn't it? So this is great. So you've gone from kind of the creative. You've obviously been in the hospitality world, sort of for a while, and you've gone from that creative side of things. You've then started to help other hosts, and you created Book Direct Pro. Is that right? What
Yes.
is that, and what problem does it solve for hosts?
Yeah, well, just backing up in 2020, when I sort of realized that there was all these people out there, and we can all remember what happened in 2020. And we all went online, and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that not everybody was on the same journey as I was, because I had done the Airbnb thing. I had the epiphany. I had started a new property by that time, and not everybody else was. People were still, there were so many people still stuck back in the Airbnb mindset. So in 2020, I started helping others. I started helping with some websites and helping with the marketing, and really loved getting my hands dirty with other people's businesses and helping them and watching them grow. One thing that I was really, one thing that always was driving me nuts is that I was having to like duct tape, different tools together to try to help people with their marketing. And I wanted a platform where I could do all of my marketing together. And so I launched Book Direct Pro last year because I was tired of watching good hosts struggle with their marketing, feeling that overwhelming sense, or, feeling like it's out of reach. Because I've been teaching people marketing. I've been giving, free content, paid offers, helping people with their marketing, but there was still people out there that just weren't doing it, and I'm like, what to do, but they just weren't doing it. So I thought, well, I'll create the tool that I've always wanted that will help them do this. Now, you can probably guess what happened next. Is that now I'm saying, okay, you've got the education and you've got the tool. There's no more excuses. Yeah. Book Direct Pro is the engine. It gives the marketing tools that hosts need to grow, but tools I found aren't enough, even with the educational piece. And so I'm launching, and we're recording this in April. And I think by the time this comes out, it will already be live, but it's called the STR Content Lab. Nice. And I think that's what's missing. It's sort of expert-backed content sessions with AI help, superpowers, and ongoing support to actually move that needle. So we're going to be creating content together, creating the marketing, doing the work. And I'm hoping that this, with the, education, the tool, and now the actual hand holding to get it done, will actually get more people into direct bookings and that book direct movement, which I know we're both on the same page, that's so important.
Yeah. And this is where, I've seen it myself, and this is why Mark created the hospitality community on Facebook. The group is he started just helping hosts to improve, to boost their hospitality, which is how it became Boostly. But this is where over time we can see, obviously you can get tools, you can get the education, but ultimately people need that accountability. And that sounds like what this session is going to help them to have somebody on hand and to actually do it at the time. Is that the purpose of these sessions?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And together with Book Direct Pro, which is an all-in-one marketing platform. So your email marketing, your social media, your SMS, landing pages, automations, like it's life-changing, to be putting in these automations so that you don't have to do things manually. It's not a PMS. It's not a booking system. I like to think that it goes hand in hand with whatever PMS that you are using. And I hope you're using a PMS. I know there's still people out there using spreadsheets, but it's time to move on from that. It goes hand in hand to help you with your bookings, getting people back, so those return guests, but also getting your own guests, new guests.
And for the host, so say I was somebody who was like, say I'm listening to this, I relied just on Airbnb. Just talk me through that kind of journey without selling the secret sauce, obviously, but talk me through how Book Direct Pro would help me to kind of get from where I am now to where I need to be.
Well, think about it this way. Airbnb hands you bookings, right? Book Direct Pro will help you build the demand for your own bookings. Okay, so it's got the automations in there that will save you hours and a clear path to attract and nurture your ideal guest. Not any guest, but the ideal guest who, is not stumbling across you on Airbnb. You're actually going out there and attracting the right fit for your business, for your property. And it sort of bridges that gap between hoping for bookings and building a business that actually brings in the bookings consistently.
It speaks to my heart, because ultimately this is the message which I know and love, is to create your own demand, your own brand, and everything you kind of need. Because I definitely think there's it's not for everybody, right? But those who it is for the ones who are willing to create something and actually create that business that stands alone outside of Airbnb. So if Airbnb comes and goes, that, don't get me wrong, it's very helpful to my hospitality business, but ultimately it's not the only place which I know if all of the OTAs close tomorrow, I've still got my own way of getting business. Whereas for 99% of people who are hosts, they tend to be very worried at that sort of situation, wouldn't they? So this is where creating this really does ring, speak to my soul as such. So you've worked with quite a few hosts, I take it, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Thousands of hosts that I've worked with around the world. Yeah.
Amazing. And what are some of the common mistakes you see that they're doing, and what is, to flip that on its head, what's working well to what should they be doing instead, basically? So what mistakes and what do you see them do well?
One of the biggest mistakes I see is that people treat their business as a listing, not a brand, which is exactly, I know, up your street and what you were saying, because you're more than your photos and your cleaning fee, right? What's working now is storytelling, personality, and actually talking to your ideal guest in your marketing. And marketing is, and I think some people get into marketing, they think, I can't do it. I can't be everywhere all the time. I can't be doing reels and jumping around and dancing and all this kind of stuff. That's not what it's about. It's about being in the right place with the right message. And I think that's really what is key, is looking at your brand and who is the right fit for you, because there is the ideal guest out there for you. And how can you reach them and get into the right place with that right message?
100%. And what are some of the things that you've found where guests are doing it right, or where, not guests, where hosts are doing it right, or where there's something where you go, oh, actually, this is cool, there's some promise here?
I think it's when I see people being real, they're not as in Instagram reels. I mean, being real, EAL, and putting their face out there, talking to their ideal guests through their content, being transparent with their journey and what they're doing. Not hiding behind a logo. Because I think a lot of people think that when we say brand, we mean your visual brand, your logo out there. Put your face on your Instagram profile and your Facebook page. Tell people who you are. I think about back when I was doing mini bars in that hotel and seeing the disgusting state people leave hotel rooms. And it made sense because this was a faceless hotel room. Mm-hmm. You don't think about the people that have to come and clean. You just know that it's not your problem. You can leave it whatever way you want and they'll clean it up and get it ready for the next person. That's not your problem. But when you're staying with someone that you've had a connection with, that you've maybe spoken to or even met in person, I love to hear about hosts meeting guests in person to check them in. I think that's just amazing. Or even just email back and forth, whatever it is. Okay. Or even seeing their content. Okay. some kind of connection, they're going to treat your property better.
Definitely.
Because they know that it's your business, then they have a connection with you. So that's what I love to see, is people putting themselves out there.
Do you know, it's so true, because there's two stories I briefly want to chuck in there. The first is, I recently got back from I was in York earlier on last week, and the host there, brilliant apartment, everything was great, but there was no moment where I knew the face of the host. It was the name of the brand, and there was no moment where I could identify a human in that entire experience. And I've got to be honest, I've left there and I haven't yet reviewed them, but I also don't feel obliged to review them like I would with some of the experiences you go to, where you go on a tour and somebody goes, hey, if you've enjoyed this, here's my card. Do you mind scanning this and giving me a review? That would really mean a lot to me. And those people I have reviewed straight away. Now, as hosts, it's difficult, right, to be available all the time. But one of the things that I've done recently was to add a video on the welcome message. So everybody who books, they click a YouTube link, and that's just a welcome video, just saying how much I'm looking forward to hosting them. And I know this is, their own unique stay, and every part of what they'll go through is an experience which hopefully will create a good memories, and they'll want to come and stay again. So just by doing that, putting your own face and own sort of stamp on it, I find that my reviews have increased, but also people then, when they message, they feel that they know you're a little bit more, I guess, a bit like this podcast, if people have listened to people on the podcast. And so I think you're absolutely right, by injecting some personality and by, being available and being hospitable and being real with people is just so true. And just one other small story to tack onto that, a good friend of mine now, I didn't know her until I met her within the Boostly community, Tracy from Brine Woodlands House, which is a B&B in the UK. She started doing these lives on the basis of the advice and the training that she was getting, and she started doing lives. She now is a radio presenter in her local town because she got picked up from doing a live. She really got into doing the lives at the time when on Facebook Lives were like every time you opened the app there was a Facebook Live. But because of that, she's ended up not just getting business to her B&B, but becoming a radio presenter, which is incredible. So just putting yourself out there and being real is just so important. I absolutely agree.
Mm-hmm. And you don't know where it's going to lead. That's amazing. That's really brilliant. And I love your idea of doing a little welcome video. I think that's really great, because if you haven't, spoken to them, or you can't meet them in person, I think that's a great way of doing it. But even putting a thank you video in your last email and saying, or your last email of that stay, and saying, hey, did you love it? Do you have any feedback for us? Let us know if there was something that maybe wasn't up to your expectations, and could you, if everything was brilliant, please leave us a review, and how much it means to you. Something like that. I think it does give that connection. And I think you're right about, for reviews, when I've met someone face to face, or they've said to me, this means a lot to me if you would review this. Say I'm in a shop or something. I was in one the other day, and they said, they ask us if we've given really good service, to get this review, and it actually goes against their record, like how many reviews they get. Right. Would you mind? And I'm, of course, and you take that away, rather than someone just sort of slipping you a review card with your bill. It's that connection.
It's wanting it to be reciprocal, like, as in, if somebody's given good service, you want to be able to do something, and if it helps them, then obviously it's kind of like community and how we've been built as humans, isn't it? So that's very cool. So you've done the hospitality, you're doing the coaching and the marketing and that side of things. What's been the biggest wow moment so far, either for you or in direct bookings in general, and how did it feel?
I think there's sort of two sides to that. One being a property manager, launching a new property in a new market, in a new country with 80% direct bookings. That was amazing. That was really fantastic. As a coach and in the marketing for direct booking space, it's helping clients move from being 100% reliant on OTAs or agencies to being 100% book direct. Mm-hmm. Those have been wow moments to me, because they can do it, and with some guidance and some help, they do it. That just feels fantastic.
Yeah, and so it should. I mean, it's a big achievement, isn't it? Which is very cool. So, what excites you most? Obviously, there's a lot of things happening in hospitality. You've got some of the doom and gloom of regulations and all this stuff on one side, but you've also got some of the amazing tech advancements, and we've talked about some PMS and there's things like dynamic pricing, all these cool things coming on the other side. What excites you the most about hospitality right now, and why?
Yeah, we're in a strange space, aren't we, right now? With everything that's happening around the world, not just in our industry, but in the wider community. It's hard sometimes to find what lifts you up and what excites you. But for me right now, it's the rise of these host-led brands that we're finally moving. I feel like we really are finally moving away from these faceless listings to, personality-driven experiences, and guests are responding. Guests are getting more savvier. They're using Google, they're using AI to look for book direct sites. And I'm loving it. And I'm loving the advent of AI coming in to help with marketing. I think that AI used right can just really, just the possibilities are endless of what we can use AI for in our marketing. We're not just operators. I can't stand that word. We're not an operator. Hosts are becoming marketers and storytellers, community builders, radio hosts, and, all these kind of things. And that's the future that I'm excited about. Yeah. Really is exciting.
Especially, I mean, like you say, so many guests out there are getting more savvy. I mean, I saw something on Instagram, and I actually downloaded it. It's called Directo, and it means that as a guest, anytime I look to stay somewhere, if I find a place on Airbnb, if there is a direct booking website, it'll just give me a link in the top corner for it, which is, and I was like, wow, this didn't exist like a year ago, in this sort of technology. So it's amazing to find these sort of things, which, especially on social media, everyone's trying to find the travel hack, right? Or the way to save money. And actually, that is great for us as people who support the direct booking movement, and for hosts, because the more likely and the easier we make it for those people. So if we've got a direct booking website, a brand, and we're findable online through socials and all that stuff, it makes it so much easier for it, doesn't it? It's the way forward.
Yeah, it really, really does. And we don't know, like, if you're relying really heavily on the likes of the OTAs, take Airbnb, for example, we don't know what's in their head of what they're going to do next. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of rumors out there of what they're going to be looking at next. And, holiday lets, vacation rentals might get shunted down the list. So it's a great time to really, pull up your socks, like you said, and jump on the book direct movement, and just start by just reclaiming a bit of that control in your own business and getting your own guests.
So there's a couple of questions I want to squeeze in, and we need to share your details on how people can get in touch. What advice would you have if you could go back to the start of your hospitality journey? What would you tell yourself?
Oh, I would tell myself to stop trying to do it alone. I had no idea that there was help out there, but I didn't look for it either. I was just doing everything on my own. And it probably took me longer and was way more frustrating than if I had the support or had found the right people, so it's really, don't be afraid to invest in that version of yourself who wants to get results faster. 100%. That's really what it is.
100%. And especially if people are listening to podcasts like this or watching this on YouTube, this is a great start. But if they wanted more support, how can they reach out to you and come and look at the services?
Sure. Well, my website is directbookingsuccess.com. if you're wanting to come and talk to me and see what I'm about, or even look at joining the STR Content Lab, where we're actually going to do our marketing together and get it done. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Or you can go check out bookdirectpro.com. Okay. And that is the all-in-one marketing platform to give you those tools so that you can actually get that marketing done. And it's built for vacation rental pros by me, who's done it. So it's not like a MailChimp where you're trying to figure out how to use it for your industry. This is created for you. That's and cool. I'm human. I'm a human person. So, hey, you could go onto Instagram, Direct Booking Success, and drop me a DM.
That's cool. That's cool. That's my favorite introduction to the personal side. Like, hey, I'm human. Come
yeah. Don't let me forget. We talk about websites all the time, but just send me a note and say hi. I've got lots of AI tools in my pocket. If people are interested, just drop me a note and I can help you out there.
That's cool. And of course, all of these links will be somewhere around however you're consuming this media. If you're listening on the podcast, when it's safe to do so, click those links and go and check out those websites. And if you're watching on YouTube, they'll be somewhere below me now. So that brings us to the end, Jenn. This has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed doing this. But before we go, we like to leave people with a bit of inspiration and something they can kind of take away, which is a personal motto or mantra that's helped you on your journey or in business in general. What would that be?
Oh, well, thanks, Liam. Thanks for having me. This has been really great. I love having these conversations with somebody who gets it, who understands, who is in the journey. And I'm not, trying to convince you that there's a better way. We're already right there. So I love this synergy.
I'm converted.
You're converted. I love it. But my sort of personal motto that I talk about, and I talk about a lot with clients, so I know they'll back me up on this, is imperfect action. I'm not saying to go out there and just throw together crap because, that's not going to work. But there's a difference between struggling and succeeding. And succeeding is when you're taking action, when you're actually getting things done. And that's really what I'm looking to help with now, is to really help. I've given the education, I've given the tool. Now let's use them to actually get those direct bookings. So imperfect action. Don't get stuck behind, it has to be perfect, it has to be right, this has to be done. No, it is better done than perfect.
100%. I really like that message. What a great way to bring it to a close. And thank you, Jenn, for coming on the Boostly podcast. We hope to see you again for another update in the future. Thank you too for listening to this on the podcast. If you know somebody else who will get value from this, please do share it with them. If not, we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Having a blast, gonna get it on the Boostly podcast. Boostly like Bruce Lee, cause it's so hard and the T is loose leaf. Making up those rhymes, don't write it, just do it loosely.